Welcome to PAR Podcast, episode 74.43. PAR Podcast is an audio supplement for Public Administration Review, the premier professional journal in the field of public administration. In 2015, PAR will celebrate 75 years of furthering public administration research, theory, and practice. This episode features comments by Abe Lackman, Senior Officer, Civic Affairs at the Simons Foundation and Scholar in Residence at the Graduate School of Education at Fordham University. Mr. Lackman reads his commentary titled, "Is the Public Economics Toolbox Applicable to Budget Analysis?" This commentary is part of the Symposium on Creating Public Value in a Multi-Sector Shared Power World, which can be found in Public Administration Review, Issue 74, Volume 4. Mr. Lackman's commentary is in response to the research article, Creating Public Value with Tax and Spending Policies, The View from Public Economics, by Laura Kalambokidis. You will first hear the abstract of this research article, followed by Mr. Lackman's comments. Abstract. According to the framework rooted in public economics, governments can create public value by focusing tax and spending policies on remedying market failures and addressing concerns about fairness embodied in a social welfare function. By pursuing optimal tax and spending policies, governments navigate the omnipresent trade-offs between equity and efficiency. Of course, in practice, the process by which policies are adopted does not resemble the planner's problem in social choice theory. In addition, real fiscal policies do not look much like the recommendations that arise from the optimal tax literature. Governments operate in public choice environments that are not conducive to focused remedying of market failure, and they suffer from their own tendencies to fail to achieve their objectives. Nevertheless, many of the tools are in place to help the federal and state governments focus tax and spending in ways that can maximize public value.
Hello, this is Abe Lackman, Senior Officer, Civics Affairs, the Simons Foundation, and Scholar in Residence, the Graduate School of Education at Fordham University. I was previously the Secretary of the New York State Senate Finance Committee for nearly a decade and Budget Director for the City of New York for approximately 2 years. I will be offering a commentary on the article Creating Public Value with Tax and Spending Policies, The View from Public Economics by the author Kalambokidis. In the article Creating Public Value with Tax and Spending Policies, The View from Public Economics by Laura Kalambokidis is an excellent summary and analysis of modern developments in public economics. While many of the proposed public finance tools should be useful in evaluating discrete and digestible pieces of proposed legislation, I remain skeptical of the applicability of these tools in evaluating proposed budgets, either at the federal or the state level. The heart of the paper is a series of analytical tools from the Public Economic Toolbox that, open quote, can help governments make tax and spending choices that will maximize public value, end quote. Many of the tools, open quote, revolve around a cost-benefit framework to identify the policies that can deliver the greatest return to the state's investment, end quote. While I am sympathetic of the rigorous toolbox described so well by the author, it is important to recognize where the systematic application of these public finance tools is feasible and where they are not. In the first instance, the proposed tools are appropriate and helpful in evaluating new and discrete legislation involving tax and spending policies outside the normal budget process. The obvious question is why exclude the budget documents, which are generally the major pieces of legislation adopted by either the Congress or the respective states in a given year. As one who has developed and negotiated budgets for both New York City and New York State for over a decade, I question whether the rigorous cost-benefit framework espoused by the author may be practical. In the case of New York State, current budget documents total nearly 3,000 pages, include over 20,000 discrete appropriations, and are currently $138 billion in size. The state budget itself, actually a series of budget bills, is required under the state constitution to be released by the executive the third week of each January. The governor then has 30 days to offer amendments to its original budget. In some years, these amendments are voluminous. By the middle of February, the New York State Legislature has a complete proposed budget to evaluate. Unfortunately, the state legislature and their fiscal staff only have 6 weeks to evaluate the proposed budgets and offer amendments before a final vote is taken on March 31st, the day before the start of the new fiscal year. Having supervised the budget process analysis for over a dozen budgets at the state and city level, it is unrealistic, let alone practical, to expect a rigorous cost-benefit analysis of each discrete appropriation, a variant of zero-based budgeting, given the limited timetable imposed by the state constitution, 6 weeks. At the very best, the current budget process in most states allows a rough justice, as described by Joseph Stiglitz in his paper. You try to evaluate the overall winners and losers and hope to estimate their relative gains and losses. In my view, this is a best-case scenario for most large states where the budget time frame is severely compressed. Clearly, this is not the standard espoused by Laura Kalama-Bokitis. In her view, open quote, to benefit from an economic-based view of public value, government decision makers need to identify market failures and the range of options available to address these failures. They also need policy analysis that can forecast the expected outcomes from adopting a proposed policy, end quote. While I think her standard is high, it can be achieved for discrete and digestible legislation outside the hothouse environment of budget making. In particular, rigorous policy analysis should be applied to new and discrete legislation in multiple areas, ranging from criminal justice, the environment, and the evaluation of individual tax expenditures. Laura Kalama-Bokitis offers numerous examples where such analysis is currently being undertaken. In summary, the paper is worthwhile and offers rigorous and practical public finance tools to evaluate discrete pieces of legislation. I only question the appropriateness of the proposed toolbox to evaluate overall budgets, given their enormous complexity and the pressure to complete the analysis in a very short time frame. Thank you.
This concludes PAR Podcast, episode 74.43. To listen to additional episodes and learn more about Public Administration Review, please visit us online at publicadministrationreview.org. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at PA Review. Thanks for listening.